Food, music, to me, are these incredible cultural pillars that are transformative for people, is that they are the ultimate expression of egalitarianism. You have people from all walks of life, from every gender, from every way people identify. Everyone gathers in that restaurant. Everyone is in that audience.
You're listening to Staring at the World with BoDeans, Kurt Newman, a T. Torrance Productions original podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Kurt Newman, Staring at the World with Andrew Zimmern. This is the part 2 of my interview with him. We talked for a long time, and we got into a lot of talk about philosophy and culture and music and entertainment, and it's really interesting to talk to someone who speaks so much about the stuff I'm talking about too. So this is part 2 of that interview. Stay tuned.
So last night I got on a plane. I was flying back from a business trip to Washington, D.C., where we're working on this giant project, the Milken Center for the Advancement of the American Dream, which is right on the pedestrian walkway across from the White House, 5 different buildings that are going to be teaching the world about what working together can mean through the immigrant experience in America and what the American dream means to so many people. I think it's really important work. And so I'm involved in that, but I had a really, really bad parenting day yesterday. And you were only as happy as your least happy child. I mean, that's my experience. And so the flight attendant, I get on and he hands me the little antiseptic wipe or whatever, which they give you now when you sit down, and reminds me to wear my mask through the whole flight. And he says, and I said, "How are you?" And because I always ask the flight attendants, how are them? Because I read once the number one complaint of flight attendants is that they welcome good morning and no one responds to them. Yeah. So I said, how are you? And they said, oh, I'm great. And they said, how are you tonight? And I said, it's been a really tough day, kind of conflicted. I'm ready for this day to be over. Yeah. And that's really honestly how I felt. I don't need to give details. Right. But I do need to speak the truth, because there is still a mechanism inside my head in which the truth is option number 5. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, young people that I'm mentoring, both in entrepreneurship. I teach at Babson College. I do a lot of things where I'm teaching. Or whether I'm working with young people in recovery who are just entered sobriety. And I always tell them that our brains, and this is true, by the way, for all human beings, not just addicts and alcoholics. Right. But for addicts and alcoholics, the truth is option 5. For most people, the truth is option 2 or 3. Yeah. But as human beings, we're kind of wired to be protective about the truth. Now, there's some people we are automatically truthful with all the time because we learn how to do that. Spouses, parents, children, business partners, best friends. Like I don't lie to my 2 or 3 best friends. I mean, it's just they would look at me, they would know. Yeah. Right. If it was coming out of my mouth and my lifestyle. I've spent 30 years going from being a liar all the time to being able to navigate this. But I have to remember that, even when someone says, how you doing? The lie is great. Yeah. But there's 4 or 5 levels before we get to what the truth is. And to me, it's a fascinating thing as I keep track of that in my own head about where the options lie and who I'm talking to about it, because it is, to me, the best way to walk through life is to be as honest as possible. It's too much energy to keep track of the bullshit.
Yeah. My one daughter, because I say stuff like that and speak honestly, and I think to your point, it's almost important between each other to be more honest, and that communication thing is important, and it can be really healing for people too. But my one daughter will call me Mr. Miserable because of that, because I'm laying out like, oh, this is how I feel today or stuff like that. But I think it's because it's kind of getting it off your chest, off your system. And that can be a healing thing for anyone, anywhere, and within their day, within whatever they're doing anywhere. I wanted to ask you a few more things about some of what I got out of your book that struck me as great stuff for people to hear, and maybe you can touch on them a little bit for us. One of the things that I feel I agree with, this is why it stood out with me, was that you say culture, music, and arts are at an all-time low in our society right now. Do you want to speak to that one at all?
Yeah, I think there is, I think Hofstadter's book in the 50s, Anti-Intellectualism in America, has come true. And I can't think of, people look at, how big the music industry has gotten, or, the media industry and stuff like that. And size sometimes is not important. It's the meaning of it and how we value it in a culture.
Yeah.
And I think its value has been diminished. Right now, we have, and I see everything. I'm a very political person. I believe the way to solve problems is through civics, which is not politics. But some issues need to be resolved by the power of law, that we are a nation of laws. And so that naturally brings in political issues. And I'll just give you one big example. We have 740, I haven't looked at the number today. We're approaching 800,000 people dead from this horrific pandemic in America. I'm one of those people who believe that those people did not die from the COVID-19 virus. I believe they died from lies and disinformation.
All right.
And that's just a way of looking at it.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Technically, yes, they had the virus.
Yes.
But I do believe that a different type of leadership and a different action plan and an honesty with people a long time ago, what people call the New Zealand model, when that brilliant president, she got on national TV and said, we're locking the country down. Yeah. We're locking our doors. Our National Guard will distribute food and water. No one will go untaken care of, but we are shutting this fucker down.
Yeah.
And I believe they have the lowest number of cases and lowest percentages of death. That kind of brave leadership, but more importantly, the honesty, which we were talking about. So I think we have, over the course of the last 25, 30 years, what Hofstadter's, thesis was that it's the anti-intellectualism, and that's different than elitism. We have predicated less value in America over 30 years on education, on science. It's why we're no longer leading the world on that. It's why the latest study has placed us in developed countries. I think we're 26th or 27th.
Yeah. Right.
In the 60s and 70s, we were number one, right? I mean, to go from, first to last is not something to be proud of, right? And we are now extending this idea into other areas of our lives. And so while there's incredible stuff being created and made, and I love books and music and, movies and the arts and all that kind of stuff. It's the devaluing of it in our culture at large that I think is really dangerous and very, very, very scary to me, because that's how, think of all the contributions that, look, we started out as people huddling around fires and caves in the wintertime. And what did we do? We told stories, we painted on cave walls, and we communicated through music.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm coming from the musician's perspective on it, but I think it's a huge mistake, obviously, too. I would, agree 100% with that quote, that it's not so easily, there's no stock market for the culture and music and arts. So it's not, you don't see numbers going up to market, but I think it's of such huge importance in what it really does. Like we spoke earlier about, I I sing in a room full of people and we come together with this positive energy, and it's really doing some good. People stop me after a show and say, I got through cancer with your song, or this weekend, we had 2 different people propose to songs I was playing on stage because it was important in their life. And I'm like, you can't tell me that this is not important in the world,
Even there's even bigger stories that are happening in that room. And those are amazing things. And I bet they happen almost every time that you're playing. But and this is why food, music, to me, are these incredible cultural pillars that are transformative for people, is that they are the ultimate expression of egalitarianism. You have people from all walks of life, from every socioeconomic background,
right,
from every gender, from every way people identify, right? Whether, she, he, they, or X, right? You have people of all stripes, left, right, red, blue, everyone gathers in that restaurant. Everyone is in that audience from all walks of life.
Right.
Because there's still the opportunity to buy a ticket, right? Or to walk into the restaurant and get a table. And so when you're out there singing about the importance of caring about other people, I'm just picking one, there's folks out there nodding in agreement, like, yeah, that's the way I run my life. And then there's other people maybe singing along with the lyrics and listening to them, but now they're hearing it for a different way. And maybe they're like, that's a really good idea. Maybe that's and you slowly transform the way people think, feel, and ultimately then the way they act, because you can't think your way into right acting. You have to act your way into right thinking.
Yeah.
And that is why, those people you're helping people act their way into right thinking. I think music is an incredible mover. We all say, oh, it's the soundtrack of my life. I can change my mood instantaneously through music. I know what songs I need to play before I make a tough phone call with a business colleague, or before I go on stage to perform myself or make television.
It's so primitive too, to me. Sometimes it's not even about the language or the lyrics. Is people just start moving together in a primitive way that you're creating some positive energy in a room. And it's like, if we can do this here, we can do it anywhere. And that's the part it plays in culture that I preach to people all the time about, trying to make this more important. If we let companies just devalue it into not being important, we're losing a vital part of ourselves there. So I'm 100% with you on there. Here's another.
I would argue the most vital part of ourselves, along with food. And here's why.
Agree.
When you said the words people just moving in rhythm together, I've had the opportunity to live with 36 of the protected peoples of the world and make TV with them on 5 different continents. And I'm talking about tribal peoples who are living in a way that's indistinguishable from the way they lived 5,000 or in some cases 40,000 years ago, whether it's in the deepest reaches of Amazonia, the Juntuazi in Africa, the Lao Sioux near the Golden Triangle, places where the government actually protects these people from outside contact. And I've had the opportunity to spend time and live with 36 of these people around the world and make television with them. And the 2 things that they all have in common at a very high level, because there's a lot of things at a lower level they have in common, is that there is always a group rhythm and music that they all take part in together, all of them, sometimes for 6, 8, 9 hours of rhythmic moving and drumming that is extremely powerful bonding and unifying. And the other thing that they do is share food with each other. In a very specific way. And they do those things to make music and to make food that I think change the way people think and feel. And it's a very, very, very important thing. And you're right, it can't be diminished. In fact, it needs to be raised up, which is why it's so important that we hear music from all peoples. It's why we need to hear, eat and experience food and culture from all peoples. The way in America, just speaking to food, the way we understand other cultures is first through our mouths. I think that's kind of backwards. I think it should be first through people, right? Yeah. But inherently in modern day America, we are suspicious of other people, which is awesome, which is horrific. What would be awesome is if we accepted people first. We accept the food. Everyone loves Mexican food. I'm not sure everyone even knows what Mexican music is like, or can name a artist in Mexico making music today, right? But when we like the food and we're in a place and we hear the music and we get turned on to that, and then ultimately we learn to love and understand the people, right? Yeah. I think that's where our future needs to be focused on.
Yeah,
demonstrates other people.
It demonstrates to me a possibility of what we can be if we want to be, if we can put down some of the prejudice that we hold so tightly. We can be an all-inclusive world that works together instead of against each other. It's true. Here's one, too, that you said I think is so true because, I read about you going to the Dalton school, which seemed to me, I went to a public school in Wisconsin, and I just didn't connect with the whole system. And one of the sayings I wrote down from your book was, get out and experience the world. It's the only way to really learn. And I thought, bingo, that was it for me in school. It was like, I can't sit in a room and read this and know it. And I would try to communicate that to teachers, that how can I know something unless I really go out and experience it? And yet it just wasn't much available back then. Hopefully it is more now. But can you speak to that quote as well? Because I 100% believe that.
Yeah, the power of travel is transformative. You're a better version of yourself on the road. You struggle more. Through struggle is learning. You learn to depress your ego. You have to ask for help. You have to ask questions. You got to ask directions. When I'm in my own bubble in my own life, I don't learn very much. It's relaxing. I need that. I need to, get more serotonin and less cortisol in my brain. So, I do like the idea of going home tonight and sitting in front of the fireplace and just eating a sandwich and watching the football game and going to sleep. That sounds really good to me. I've been going for the last 4 or 5 days. I'm gonna relax tonight, right? Yeah. But what really changes me is when I'm out experiencing something in the world. That can be across a town, or it can be across on the other side of the world, because I'm put in a position where I have to, be of the world, right? I'll give you a really good example. I wasn't much for recycling, and I was with a tribal people 14, 15 years ago. And they made rope as needed. They would take reeds and strip them. And then the whole tribe, 45, 50 people would get together and using their toes and fingers, weave rope.
Yes.
And they'd use the rope for the 2 or 3 things. One of which was catching these birds, these long story. But
yeah, I remember you telling it in the book, though. I remember this.
Yeah, I'm trying to be helpful in these tribes, because if you're not helpful, you're pushed out of the tribe like a sick animal is pushed out, and then the lion or the crocodile comes up and eats them. That National Geographic thing. That's the sick old wildebeest. The other, he's not contributing to the tribe, so he's pushed away. And in the tribal world, if you're not contributing, you're pushed away. And so when I'm living with these tribes, I try to be very active and very helpful. So I figured, okay, I'll cut these 5 birds out of these snap snares that they made with the rope and little pieces of wood that they carved. And I took my knife out, and the tribal people had a conniption, and I immediately just stopped, because I've learned just stop.
Yeah.
And it was explained to me through the translator. They're like, why are you cutting the rope? And now I have string in 3 junk drawers in my house, and I only use it once a year to tie the Christmas tree to the top of the station wagon, or maybe another time when you need string.
Right.
But it's like you cut the rope because I have access to string. These people made the string. They untie it, wind it up, they grease it with animal fat so it doesn't dry out, and they put it in a leather pouch in the center of the boma, the little cluster of huts that they live in. So if anyone needs rope, because there's no individual possessions, it's all communal possessions, they know where to go get it.
Yeah. Yeah,
and so
cool.
They're looking at me like, don't cut the rope. And that transformed me. I came home, I was the greenest son of a bitch and still am to this day. I mean, you should see my recycling station, but it got me, it also propelled me into investigating climate crisis and how people live. And it was literally a 30-second moment in the middle of an African desert. I mean, I'm in Botswana, right, when this happened, in a rock hardscrabble, inhospitable place by any stretch of the imagination that these people have adapted to live in. And the plants that they make the rope from only grow 6 months a year. So they're like, everyone in that tribe is a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a warrior, an architect. I mean, the skill set is unbelievable in the ancient world. So exposing yourself to other people and other ideas when you travel is so transformative. It's so powerful. But you can have that same experience, with 4 guys in a van driving to gigs across the country. You're adventuring, you're learning, you're experiencing. Sure. You roll into town. It's like you have to ask someone, hey, is any place open for dinner? I mean, people think that's a really simple thing. Well, I got news for you. Asking for help is not a simple thing for any human. We all are hardwired in today's culture to want to protect the idea that we need help. Yeah. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not of weakness. And we give a different message today. Pop culture gives a different message.
Yeah. No, social media, absolutely. You have to pretend everything is great and put on 20 filters to make yourself look. Yep. So I don't even want to go down that road with you right now. But as far as getting out and experiencing, I do that with my kids too. I mean, they were homeschooled, and a lot of times they're like, well, we didn't get this other education. I'm like, you got more education than you really realize, just walking outside and looking at a bug on the ground or looking at a tree, observing the most simple things around you. I sit at airports and watch people walk by, and I can learn so much about people and behavior and stuff just from watching them, that there's just so much out there to learn from. And I've been on this thing to push that into our educational system. Instead, stop making kids just sit in the rooms and read about stuff and get them out there learning about what it actually means to watch something, watch how bugs work, watch how trees grow, whatever it is. To your point, going out across the world is an extreme. You can learn so much to seeing other cultures in action, that our world is big and small at the same time, and you can learn all of it. Here's another one you said, though. It's a great one. It's to push your limits, and you'll learn things about yourself that you never imagined. I thought that's a great one for people, and it kind of goes to what you've gone through in your life, very much between addiction and then going to who you are now. But for everybody, that's a great message.
You blanked out for a second. What was my quote again? I heard the rest of it.
Push yourself, and you'll learn things about yourself you never imagined.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, I had an experience when I was in treatment. One of my counselors came to me and said, "You're smart and you only do things that you're good at." And I looked at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? He goes, well, you cook, you read books, you do these games, you like cards, you like everything you do is stuff that you're already good at. He says, when was the last time you tried something new? And I had never thought about that. I said, I read new books all the time. I go to new restaurants. I watch new movies. Yeah. What the fuck are you talking about? He goes, no, when did you try to learn something new? And I was just struck by that. And he said, my worry about you, at this point, I'm like 3 or 4 months sober. He said, your ego is going to eventually start to talk back to your healthy self. It's not going to be good. You protect yourself. You don't want to appear to struggle. You don't want to appear to not know what you're doing. That is a very, very dangerous thing for someone in early recovery. I said, why don't you do something that's genuinely new? Pick up some new hobbies, try some new things, learn a foreign language, learn to play a musical instrument, whatever it is. So, I one by one started picking up new things, or in some cases, old things that I had abandoned as a child when my other life, my unhealthy life consumed me. So two things that I do today that I started the winter 30 years ago, snowboarding and disc golf. Both are very humbling activities. Learning them is really, really an insufferable experience. But it gave me such incredible strength. I have some debilitating hand injuries from years of cooking and some carpal tunnel stuff and some tendon damage in my hands from just years of cutting them and gripping knives and doing too much stuff with them.
Yeah.
And there are some modern miracles that will, reestablish some dexterity. And so it's hard for me to throw a disc certain ways, but I do it anyway. It's hard for me, I went back and started playing guitar, right? I'm just about fiddling around in my house, little 3-chord, stuff. But just the act of sitting downstairs in the room where I have a couple guitars and just playing music and humming and singing for, even if it's just for 15 minutes, before dinner or whenever, doing something new and learning like, oh shit, I can't get my hands to do that, I can't make that sound, and then going online where you can look at all these fabulous little guitar primers on YouTube, and you can learn how to play a chord maybe a different way. And it's just like, wow, I learned something. I can put that little clampy thing. What is it?
Capo.
The capo.
Right.
Yeah, I can put that, and I then only need to use 2 or 3 fingers instead of 4 to make a certain chord or a certain sound. It's like, wow, boom. It's like I learned something. But here's why cooking and that musical experience are so similar. It's a yoga.
Yeah.
You tune out everything else, no pun intended. It's impossible for me to bake a cake or try to learn to play a certain song on the guitar and think about my own problems or why you're you look better in a scarf on your head than I do, or any of the things that my mind when I'm alone like drifts off to, right? I'm only focused on that one thing. It's why I understand why so many people play ball golf, and get obsessed by it, because you have to think. I was talking to I think it was Simon Sinek, who's one of my favorite modern philosophers and thinkers, and he brought up something about a book that he had read. He said, if you play catch for 15 minutes a day with someone, your stress levels go down by like 40%. And they encourage all people in businesses and who have stress in their life, parents, other people, play catch. And I was like, play catch? What does playing catch for 15 minutes do? It says it actually takes you out of your cerebral cortex and puts you 100% in your amygdala, where your lizard brain lives. And I said, well, isn't that bad? No. And they said, well, no, what's bad is to stay in there when you need your cerebral cortex. But yoga and things like that bring you into your amygdala and out of your thinking part of your brain where you're all confused. It's impossible to think about your tax returns when someone is throwing a ball that's going 40, 50 miles an hour at you. You got to catch it with your glove or a rubber ball with your bare hands, right? Just play catch with someone. You have to focus on it, and you're using your instinctual quick slice brain. All the things that these, from Simon Sinek to Malcolm Gladwell, have said will benefit you. Yeah. Get out of that place where you're worried about yourself and get into that place where you're actually in a yoga. Some people actually do yoga. It's why it's so spiritually, physically, and mentally beneficial. But there are other ways that you can just lower that amount of cortisol in your life. Yes. I think travel does it, music does it, playing catch will help you. I think exploring these things, I've learned all this stuff simply because someone told me to be more curious a long time ago. And I said, why do I have to be more curious? And he said, because that's the key to your actual physical survival. Because if you don't stay curious, you won't learn. If you won't learn, you'll end up drinking and dying. And I didn't want to drink and die.
Yeah, people think about Zen and meditation as these esoteric things that are far off or something you have to almost travel to get to. But I explain the same thing to people, that it's not at all. Sitting down and playing music And that focus of just being in the moment was something that is meditation. That is Zen. And you're right, all those activities are primitive for our brains, but take us to a very important place for our human species. And I think it would help us understand each other better to just every day you do a little bit of practice like that. I wanted to ask you before we go, is there anything coming up with you now that you're working on that's interesting for our listeners to know about?
Yeah, I mean, I do too much. I have too many jobs.
Yeah.
I just joined Substack, which I'm kind of thrilled about. I used to do drive time radio, and I've missed that job tremendously. I was able to talk at people and express my views and share things. Yeah. And I haven't found a medium. Social media doesn't scratch that itch. My website has become its own brand, and I don't want to mess with something that's broken or isn't broken, right? So I joined Substack, and I'm going to be contributing to that on my page 3 or 4 times a week. People can go to andrewzimmern.substack.com, andrewzimmern.substack.com, and sign up, subscribe. And I think it's really cool. We're just going to be exploring I'm going to write an essay every week. I'm going to do a little Greek chorus thing where I actually respond to my own silliness a day later. There'll be recipes that aren't found anywhere else and lots of other sort of ways we communicate with each other on there. It's a fantastic new thing that I just started yesterday. So I'm super excited about it. And, new TV shows, I have 3 or 4 that are coming out in Q1 2022. Season 2 of Family Dinner, both streaming on Discovery Plus and on Magnolia Network, linear. If people don't want to stream, they can just watch it on, DIY Network becomes Magnolia January 4th, and my shows will be there. And then I have 2 other shows. One is already announced. I'm doing a In the Kitchen show where I teach people how to cook wild foods, foods that are foraged, hunted, fished, acquired.
Wow.
It is, if you want to do it with pork from the store and not venison from the field, go ahead and do that. But it's a really cool In the Kitchen show that's not been done before, and I'm really excited on the Outdoor Channel. And then I have a big project that's not been announced yet that I wish I could announce here, but
go ahead.
Go to Andrew. All things Andrew are at andrewzimmern.com. So, and I by the way, this is not a show. We have no paywall. We don't trade your information. Nothing is done with it. But we do have a newsletter weekly at andrewzimmern.com that keeps people up to date. So if you're interested in the 7,000 things I do, or maybe just one of them, subscribe. It's a really good little reminder. It's short and sweet and just lets you know where things are going out with me.
Yeah, you make me feel like I'm not doing enough things, actually. But now that I've hit 60 years old, I feel like, I'm too old to do that stuff. So I'll have to just keep getting
It's the new 30, buddy. Come on. Yeah. 60 is the new 30.
I need more stuff to do. Yeah, I do. Well, hey, I want to thank you for being on the podcast with us. It's been great talking to you. I think we're on the same wavelength, and we're speaking a lot of the same language here, and hopefully people listen to it. But what a great show. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Right. I said yes right away. I've admired you for a long time, and I didn't know that you were from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I live in Minnesota. So the next time you're crisscrossing our state, remember you've got a friend here in the land of lakes.
I'm going to be up there in a few weeks playing some shows. I spent a lot of time up there, but around every Christmas-ish time, somewhere in December, we end up playing shows up there. So if you're around, come on out and sing some songs with us. And
I will.
Thank you so much again. You take care of yourself.
Take care. Take it easy. You too. Thank you.
Bye. So there you go. That was my interview with Andrew Zimmern. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. If you like the show, please subscribe, rate, review. Spread it around wherever you get your podcast. You can download it. Thank you for listening. Staring at the World.
Thanks for listening to Staring at the World with BoDeans, Kurt Newman, a podcast about creative innovation. Please be sure to download, subscribe, rate, and review, and keep listening wherever you get your podcasts.